And good afternoon. It is 1 o'clock, and we welcome you to our latest Seehafer News radio debates here on 107.9 WOMT, WOMTradio.com, and 97.1 WCUB and CubRadio.com. Our latest Seehafer News radio debate features the two candidates that are looking for your vote to serve as mayor of this city of Manitowoc for 4 years. Joining us in studio today, the incumbent mayor of the city of Manitowoc, Mr. Justin Nichols, and his challenger, Mr. Chris Abel. And gentlemen, thank you for being a part of the Seehafer News radio debate series, and welcome to our debate. Glad to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I don't know if I forgot to mention this, but I will now. My name is Brian Norton. I will moderate today's debate. Our Seehafer News radio debates are exclusively presented by Novak Service Center in Manitowoc. Now, just a couple of things for our listening audience. We want to reiterate, please, no phone calls. We just cannot accept any phone calls today. If you have a question that you would like the candidates to expound on, please use our WOMT Shoreline text line, and you must use the area code 920-682-4674. That is 920-682-4674. We will get to as many of your questions as we can. If we do not get to all of them, please accept my apologies because times could be a constraint. We also have some previously emailed questions that I just got looked at moments ago. We're not going to take them in any specific order. If they flow with the discussion that is currently going on between the two candidates, we'll try to make it an even flow and go that way. But other than that, just emails and questions on our WOMT Shoreline text line, please. And we had a coin flip out in the green room, as everybody calls it out here, and it was determined that challenger Chris Abel will give his opening statement, to be followed by Mr. Nichols. And Mr. Abel, you have 90 seconds to make your opening statement. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My thanks to WOMT and Novak Service Center for providing this opportunity. Today, you will hear two very different approaches to oversight of our city and what it means to be your mayor. Mine is based on the charter for our city government and my proven commitment to open government, honesty, consensus, and plain old common sense. We can all see, or at times even feel, the urgent need the city has for a real roads plan. The poor condition of our neglected streets hurts the city's image and our ability to attract and retain families and businesses. We've also seen too much discord at City Hall in working with other government groups and among the city officials. It's time to stop the petty squabbles and act seriously to address our problems by focusing our priorities. We simply cannot afford another 4 years of delays, denials, and distractions. Many of you know me well as a teacher, alderman, or active community member. You can always learn more by calling me at 652-0036 or visiting able.vote. I am confident you will find that I am your first and best choice.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. Mr. Nichols, you now have 90 seconds to make your opening statement. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you to Seehafer Broadcasting and Novak Service Center for hosting here today. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Just a little bit about me real quick. If you don't know about me, I was born and raised here in Manitowoc, as was my entire family since my great-great-grandparents immigrated here in the 1860s. We've been here ever since. We've attended Emmanuel Lutheran Church here in Manitowoc, and that's where my grandpa, dad, and I all went to grade school. I graduated from Lutheran High School in 2005, and I got my bachelor's degree in history from Silver Lake College. I was first elected to the council in 2005, where I served until 2009, where I was first elected mayor, and have served ever since. I believe I'm the best candidate in this race because of my proven leadership in reducing our debt, increasing our bond rating, which allows us to do more without paying more in interest, the economic development we have seen the past few years with additions like Ammo Inc., Alliance, Redline Plastics, which, by the way, just announced on their social media that they're breaking ground for an additional 100,000 square foot addition in the industrial park just months after their ribbon cutting on their current building. Robinson Metal, Breese, Konecranes, and many more. Electric rates never increased the entire time I served as mayor either. And I'm the only candidate with a specific plan moving forward, with continued fiscal responsibility and showing the citizens exactly how much we can spend on roads over the next few years. I look forward to this forum today.
Thank you, Mayor Nichols. And we will now, I'll ask a couple of questions here, and then we'll get to some previously emailed questions again that I've just had an opportunity to get a look at. The candidates have not looked at them either. And we also have some questions that appears coming in on our WOMT Shoreline text line. If you have anything, please go ahead and take advantage of it. Use the area code at 920-682-4674, 920-682-4674. We will start with Mayor Nichols on this one, and I just simply want to know, and again, gentlemen, you have 90 seconds, up to 90 seconds to give your response. Both of you gave eloquent opening statements, but I guess what I want to know is deep down in your gut, passion-wise, why do you feel that this is the job for you, and why do you feel it is so important that you specifically are mayor of this city? Mayor Nichols, go ahead, please.
Thanks. To answer that, I always look back on what got me into this. Why did I want to get involved in the first place? And I've been elected in Manitowoc here since 2005, since I was a senior in high school, 18 years old. And I look back then, and what am I doing today? Would my 18-year-old self be proud of me today? And what my plans are moving forward. Quite frankly, I love this city. I think we have so much to be proud of, and I want to continue to be a part of it as your mayor. I love the challenges of the job. I love the day-to-day excitement. I love planning for the future. When I look at young people in our community, like the Leah Hales of the world, I just want to make sure that they want this to be a community they want to live in and stay in, either go to college, come back. But I look at it, and I'm going to be living here. I want to retire here. I want to live my life in Manitowoc. So the decisions I make today really are always geared toward the future. And I'm excited for the opportunities we have that lie ahead of us. I'm excited for this community. We've done so much, but there is so much more to do. And I feel I'm the candidate that can provide that to the citizens of Manitowoc.
Thank you, Mayor Nichols. And Mr. Abel, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Well, I think, first of all, I have a lot of experience, both in industry before I became a teacher and my 20 years teaching in the Manitowoc Public School District. I also have 10 years of experience on council, so I feel that gives me a lot of background knowledge that would make me capable of doing a good job as mayor. I also have attended the Clerks and Treasurers Institute out of Green Bay and have taken all the coursework required to be a municipal clerk or a municipal treasurer, which I thought was important for me to know, to be able to better understand what goes on in those important departments in a city. And finally, I'm a practical problem solver. I'm always focused on finding solutions rather than seeking something that I specifically want. I'd rather that we solve the problem by working with everybody. My main reason for doing this is an opportunity for me to support the folks and the families I've come to know in my time here at Manitowoc. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. And Mr. Abel, we're going to begin with you on this. I guess I just have one more question here. During this pandemic, it's been difficult. I mean, we're living in a different world. Contact has been basically relegated through social media, whatever form of it you use. But I guess the question I have for both of you is, how have you been able to circumvent this during the pandemic? Have you been able to reach out to your constituents? Have you been able to knock on doors? Have you been able to verbally or physically look people eye to eye and speak with them? And what have they told you, if anything, that really sticks with you as you run your campaign? Mr. Abel, please.
Oh, yes, thank you. Obviously, COVID-19 presents a real challenge for everybody, including candidates running for mayor. I've been going door to door. I make sure that when I speak to people, I keep the correct, appropriate distance, and I'm outdoors, so it's fairly safe that way. I always have a mask with me if anybody's going to invite me in to make sure that everybody feels as safe as possible. I use UV sanitizer for the paperwork that I hand out to make sure that it's safe. And of course, I sanitize my hands too. So it is possible to get out there. But in addition, a fair amount of stuff I'm doing virtually as well. I have open office hours now on Wednesdays, both from 2:30 to 3 and from 6 to 6:30, where anybody can log in through Google Meet and talk with me. I've done a lot of phone calls. So all of that is working very well. What I've been hearing from people is that COVID-19 has been a real challenge, both for their businesses and for themselves personally. I've seen some of those challenges with families when I was teaching at the end of last year, and I want to work to help everybody with that.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. Mr. Nichols, go ahead, please.
Thank you. And I'm sure we'll probably get some other questions about COVID, but I would just like to say, since I have the time here, one of the things I was most proud of during this entire time was the COVID Relief Fund that was created from public and private sector, where the two large banks headquartered in Manitowoc came together, a few other private individuals, the Chamber, the City, Manitowoc Public Utilities, and Two Rivers, where we helped 80-plus small businesses in our community with direct grants. It was a true public-partner partnership that helped a lot of small businesses during this time, and it was very successful. And fortunately, fortunately, hopefully that helped them enough to get through that time to see brighter days ahead. It's been an interesting with COVID. I never thought we would be having debates around screens, but here we are. And one thing, though, that it has pushed us to do more of is to get into the virtual world. Our meetings now are on Facebook Live. They're available on the city's website, live streamed, all standing committees. We had that in the past, but now we're opening it up even more and gaining even more access to the citizens to see their local government in action. So while the pandemic hit many of us hard in many different ways, I always look at what did we learn from it and what can we do better. I believe that is one way government can do better moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Why don't we go ahead, I guess, and take this question here before we get to a break. And it is specifically geared toward Mr. Nichols, so we'll ask you, but then, Chris, I want to get your response to the question. The question on our WOMT Shoreline text line: have you, as mayor, applied for money from the state designed for stimulus? And if so, how would the both of you utilize any of this money? And Mayor Nichols, you're first, please.
Sure. So there's a lot of there were two stimulus packages really that had dollars available to cities. The first time around, under the Trump administration, the city received about $550,000 in COVID relief funds. We set that aside in last year's budget with the understanding that we did not know where state shared revenues were going to come in. The state budget was not presented at that time by Governor Evers. We wanted to make sure that we didn't have to make drastic decisions this upcoming budget year because of less revenues coming into the state and our own municipality. This last go-around, we'll be receiving about $3.5 million. Again, these federal dollars aren't just we can spend on anything to lower taxes or reduce debt. They have to be project-specific or COVID-related. So we were able to supplement many of the additional costs that we had for our EMS service. We had to add a lot of equipment because of COVID, and that's not going to change anytime in the near future. As for other state grants and federal grants, we continually apply. We just helped Konecranes with over $1 million grant, the Car Ferry with about a $750,000 grant that we received from the state. Car Ferry dock altogether got about $5 million over the past few years to make sure that continues. Grants is one thing that our staff at City Hall is geared for and aggressively go after, especially with parks, too. We've hired some park staff that will continue to go after grants for that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Mr. Abel, go ahead, please.
Yeah, well, thank you. Obviously, my experience with applying for the money is a little more limited. We did apply for some money to offset some technology costs and some other costs that we were experiencing at the library. As president of the library board, I was involved with some of that. That money, of course, comes through to the city where it gets shared out with everybody. I do want us to be looking carefully at the library about what future opportunities come along so that maybe we can put in a permanent drive-through with a drive-through window, because I think the library has clearly shown the fact that there are a lot of people that could benefit from that with or without COVID-19. And certainly I do anticipate that there will be more COVID-19 money coming down the pike, depending upon how the state handles it. And like the mayor, I would expect the city to go aggressively after those dollars. Additionally, I really expect us to see a pretty bold stimulus package as COVID-19 comes to the end, coming from the federal government. And I want the city to have a list of what we would call shovel-ready jobs so that we can get that money as soon as it becomes available. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. And if you are just tuning in to 107.9 WOMT or 97.1 WCUB, you're listening to the latest in a series of Seehafer News radio debates this afternoon, featuring the two candidates, mayoral candidates for the city of Manitowoc. Incumbent Mayor Justin Nichols and his challenger is Mr. Chris Abel. Our Seehafer News radio debates are presented exclusively by Novak Service Center, Manitowoc.
Novak Service Center. Trust us.
At Novak Service Center, we're more than your local mechanic. We're a family-owned business, and we understand the importance of shopping local, supporting those in need, and showing our appreciation. That's why we're offering $10,000 in free oil changes to healthcare workers in our community. In addition, we're also going to offer $5,000 for free oil changes to those in the hospitality industry. So whether you're an essential healthcare worker, or a server, a dishwasher, or even a cook, we want to support you. Simply stop at Novak Service Center and pick up your free oil change certificate. No questions asked. It's our way of saying thank you. Novak Service Center, Manitowoc.
Novak Service Center. Trust us.
And welcome back to the latest of our Seehafer News radio debates, today featuring the two mayoral candidates for the city of Manitowoc, as Mayor Justin Nichols being challenged this election cycle by Mr. Chris Abel. Again, if you have any questions you would like the candidates to address, you can do so via our WOMT Shoreline text line 920. You must use the area code 920-682-4674. And we'll do our best to get them all in. We have a lot to get to. We'll do our best, and we want to make sure that the candidates expound on the issues, because that's, where they want to get their message out is to you. So we want to give them as much time as humanly possible. And again, our Seehafer News radio debates are presented exclusively by Novak Service Center in Manitowoc. And there were a couple of questions that came in via email as I was looking at it, gentlemen, that specifically, dovetailing off COVID-19, have to do with the mask mandate. Let's face it, there are some people who they're 100% in favor of it. They feel we should wear them all the time. And some, let's face it too, are just dead set against it. They feel that it's time to move on. People should have their own choice. And some are pretty upset, I guess, for the lack of a better term, of thinking they don't need to be told what to do. Others, on the other side of the fence, are saying, hey, we need to do everything we can with this pandemic still in full force, that we need to protect our fellow citizens. We got to do the best that we can. And as cases seem to be declining, we seem to get more friction on either side of which way to go. We're going to start with Mr. Abel on this one, because we closed with him last time. And, sir, I guess as we kind of clump all these, questions into one, where do you stand on this? How long should it be? And where would you see a mask mandate going forward now, about 13 months into this pandemic here in the city?
Well, I would absolutely say that obviously masks are uncomfortable. They're certainly inconvenient, but they're also effective. If you're carrying the COVID-19 virus, they help abate you spreading it. Now, when I wear a mask, I always think of my mother and her somewhat more frail health than mine, and I think about the fact that I would not want someone like my mom to catch COVID-19 because I wasn't wearing a mask. So I understand all the places that require it, and I understand why we're asking people to wear them. Right now in Wisconsin, they're estimating we've got about 25% of the population at immunity thanks to inoculations. So I think we're getting close to the point where those can be restricted or the masks can be no longer required in areas where there's more open space. But I also think it's important to listen to our local health experts, so I would follow the guidance from our county health department.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. Mr. Nichols, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yes, I'm also supportive, as Chris said, for a lot of the same reasons. As he mentioned, we implemented it for city facilities quite a few months ago. We did that because that's what we have control over. Really, there are two main reasons why we did that, and that was to protect the health and well-being of our employees, because employees obviously work at all these city facilities, and of course the customer, which is the citizen coming into the facility for whatever reason. I mean, we even had to make pretty difficult decisions to close buildings themselves, with the library, the RAR West, and a few others during this time. Masks aren't the only be-all, end-all, though, of solving this pandemic. I'm a true believer that, you're not going to be wearing a mask if you're out at a restaurant and eating. That's understandable. You can't wear a mask while you're eating. But you can socially distance yourself from others. You can stay with your own family and the members of your family that you've been around, hopefully, at least during this pandemic. So there's other measures in place than just the mask mandate. So the mask mandate for the city, for only city facilities, not citywide, ends April 30th. And the reason the council did that was because there will be a new council and or mayor sworn in before that timeline. And if that new mayor and council have a different opinion on the mask mandate, they can reverse it and end it and or extend it if needed. But hopefully things are looking good. So hopefully we see an end to at least that in the very near future.
Yeah, and another thing too is there are people saying, well, we need free choice. We need to be able to make our own decisions. We're grown up enough to be able to do that. As we get, I guess, a follow up to this as we get a little bit further along. Would either one of you, I guess both of you can comment on this. Would you be in favor of just a personal choice type of thing, or just making sure that we use our heads, common sense, and that we make sure that we're looking out for our neighbor and our fellow citizens? And it just really is a matter not only of free choice, but it's a matter of respect. I guess, Mayor Nichols, would you respond to that, please?
Yeah, so this is a worldwide pandemic. We're all in the same boat here. We all have to face this. And I obviously support, as I'm sure everyone does, individual choices in their own lives. But this is a worldwide health issue, and personal choice is important, but it also should be just a responsibility of individuals. As Chris said, think of your mom and dad, think of your grandparents, think of others. I feel sometimes we've become too individualistic that we forget to think about our fellow neighbor. And that's really when a community is at its strongest, is when we're facing an issue like this that none of us can escape. We have to do it together. And if that means we have to put on a mask, which, as Chris said, none of us like it, we want it to end as quickly as possible. But if that's what gets it to end as quickly as possible, I'm happy. I'll just use one reference real quick with my last 30 seconds here. I'm a basketball referee, and I reffed this past winter, this past season, and I was just so happy. The kids were happy because they were able to be out there. They had to wear masks. I had to wear a mask. But guess what? We were out there. And thank God, because if it was just because we had to wear that mask, they're playing basketball, they're getting out there and enjoying it. I had fun. So hopefully this will all end soon with the masks.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Mr. Abel, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think even when mask mandates go away, when they're lifted, I think you'll still see people wearing masks. You'll see people wearing masks who are immunocompromised, who have some sort of underlying health issue. For their own safety, you'll still see people wearing masks. Maybe at some point they'll just be wearing them during the greater seasons of flus and colds, but I still think you'll see some people wearing them. And, I think that's going to be for their own personal safety that they'll make that choice. This is one of the reasons why I'd really like us to find some funding to get that drive-through pickup window in at the library so that people who are worried about being in a place where other people may be spreading germs can just pick up their books at the window and go on after they've ordered them online. The city has no health officials. So that's why I would say, again, when the county tells us it's safe to lift it, you should lift it, but I still think people who want to wear them for their personal safety shouldn't be in any way made to feel like they're making a bad choice.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. Again, if you are just tuning in, you're listening to the latest in our Seehafer News radio debates today, featuring the two candidates vying for your vote 2 weeks from today, April 6th, to serve as your mayor for the next 4 years. Current Mayor Justin Nichols is here, along with his challenger this election cycle, Mr. Chris Abel. One more here before we sneak into a break. This just in on our WNT Shoreline text line. Where do the both of you stand on the school referendum on the ballot? Mr. Abel, go ahead, please.
Yes, the school referendum. First of all, I think it's important to recognize that something structurally is seriously wrong when districts have to continually come to referendum simply to keep the same funding they've been using. So there's something that really needs to be corrected, and that needs to be corrected not at a local level. As far as the referendum itself, I really think that since the city is a separate unit of government, the school district has its own sovereignty. They should be making their own decisions. They are coming to people requesting this and clearly have laid out their argument. So people should be making their own choice on that, as I will at the ballot box. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. Mr. Nichols, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I support the school referendum. I wholeheartely support the school referendum, and the reason is I look at the facts. As Chris alluded to, there is a funding problem, and unfortunately, school districts like ours that have been very responsible in their spending, dating back to the early '90s when they changed the state funding mechanisms, we're unfortunately behind in the funding for as opposed to other school districts. And when you look at our mill rate, when you just look at the facts of what the school district is asking for, it's not asking for anything really above and beyond. It's asking just to maintain what they have, because the last referendum failed. And when I don't know how many school districts around the state are going to referendum just to maintain what they had because the past referendum is ending, I think that shows a structural problem in the funding, and I believe we need to step up as a local community and help. This is where Chris and I would disagree, even though it's a separate entity of government. As mayor, I need the whole community to be successful, and a strong public school system with good teachers and administrators helps support our local economy. Our local businesses rely on a good public school district, and our citizens do. So I think as mayor, it's a responsibility as a leader to support issues like this when they arise in the school district.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nichols. By the way, what both Mr. Abel and Mr. Nichols were referring to, the state legislature back, I believe it was 1993 or 1994, they put revenue caps on school districts. They did to cap spending, simply put, because, well, the state thought it was getting a little bit out of control. And now Mr. Nichols brought up a number. By the way, it's over 150 districts in the last year alone that have gone to referendum, and that is a lot. And so these are just some of the numbers I want to clarify for you, the voters, to just kind of give you an idea. And state and local government have to work symbiotically. They have to be able to be on the same page. And sometimes it does get a little bit difficult. And just to kind of sort out those facts for you, the listeners, about what these two gentlemen were talking about moments ago. Well, believe it or not, we've come to the halfway point of this latest Seehafer News radio debate. My name is Brian Norton, moderator of the debate today. Second half of our mayoral debate for the city of Manitowoc with incumbent Mayor Justin Nichols and his challenger Christopher Abel continues after we hear from our exclusive sponsor of today's latest Seehafer News radio debates, Novak Service Center, Manitowoc.
We all lead busy lives, and we all have commitments that we need to honor. So who has the time to sit around for an oil change, tire rotation, or any service work for that matter? Hi, this is Jeremiah Novak, and at our shop, we understand that time is precious. That's why at Novak's, our commitment is to provide you with service you can't find anywhere else. You see, we gladly pick up your vehicle and drop it off at home or work, so you don't have to wait around for us. You can do what you need to do while we take care of your vehicle. And the best part, our delivery service is absolutely free. That's the difference at Novak's.
And welcome back to the latest of our Seehafer News radio debates here on 107.9 WOMT and 97.1 WCUB, presented exclusively by Novak Service Center, Manitowoc. My name is Brian Norton, the moderator of today's debate. If you are just tuning in, welcome to today's debate. The two mayoral candidates for the city of Manitowoc debating issues today and vying for your vote to lead this city in the next 2 weeks. It'll be a 4-year term. Incumbent Mayor Justin Nichols and his challenger Christopher Abel, kind enough to join us in studio today. Again, if you have a question on our WOMT Shoreline text line, please go ahead and do so, but you have to use the area code 920-682-4674, 920-682-4674. And we begin with Mayor Nichols this time, and here's a question from our WOMT Shoreline text line. Do you, the mayor, have anything to do with keeping electric rates down here in the city of Manitowoc?
Yes. Yes, so the mayor is a voting member on the Manitowoc Public Utilities Commission, has been for quite some time, the mayor, and also one representative of the city council, who happens to be Council President Eric Sitkowitz, along with a few citizens. So directly, it is of a majority vote, obviously, in how the utility operates and electric rates, and also the administration at Manitowoc Public Utilities. The commission hires a general manager who obviously oversees the operations. And over the past, well, at least as long as I've been mayor, under Nilash Katari and now Troy Adams as the general manager, we've been very fortunate to have individuals who have worked tirelessly to keep electric rates low. And it really, I love talking about this because it's such a unique thing in our community to have a publicly owned utility, a generating utility, which is good because when the market tells us to turn on our boilers, that generates revenue to the electric ratepayers of the city of Manitowoc. So how the operation is run is very vital to whether or not electric rates can increase or decrease. Publicly owned is a huge reason why we can control rates locally. And yeah, the mayor, as a voting member on the Manitowoc Public Utilities Commission, does have a say in how the utility is run and how rates, water, electric, steam, broadband, all are operated.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Mr. Abel, your response.
Yeah, and here I would say that, respectfully, I wouldn't say that the role of one member on the board for the rates is a decisive role, but certainly the entire board does look at that in addition to other things. I think, and here I agree completely with the mayor, under Nilash and the current general manager, the MPU has been run tremendously well. I think that the city was very wise to set up a publicly owned utility because that also helps to keep the rates down. So I would give a lot of credit to the MPU and all the fine folks there. Another thing that they do there that really helps keep our rates down is they are watching all the time to see when other energy exchanges are actually creating energy cheaper than we can, and then they buy it off of there, so they still keep to drive down the rates that way.
Thank you, Mr. Abel, and we're going to stay with Mr. Abel on this question. as this one is specifically geared to you. It says here, Mr. Abel, you claim that you will make road improvements in the city of Manitowoc a priority in your administration. However, I have not heard how you expect to do so, which roads would be included in your plan, nor have I heard how you expect to pay for the road repairs, and I look forward to hearing your comments on this issue, please. Mr. Abel, go ahead, sir.
Yes, and thank you for the question. This question really comes up a lot as I'm going around, and I will tell you that I have a fairly straightforward and I think common sense approach to it. It's really about setting priorities. If our first priority is public safety, then we make sure what we pay for first is our police and fire. Our next major thing should be infrastructure. I would make it our second priority, and if it's your second priority, then that's how you pay for it, by making sure you address your needs ahead of your wants. How would we determine which ones are going to be done? That's something where certainly I would, as I've already done on my website with the Save Our Streets survey, everybody is certainly welcome to turn in information about streets that they think need to be addressed, and that's something I'll share with council. But also, we certainly have a very wise and thoughtful streets department that would go out and rate all of them so that we can create a long-term roads plan to address the streets we're going to do over the next 3 years, and then what our 5-year, 10-year, and 15-year targets are. But I know that by setting it as a priority, we can easily pay for it by doing it first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. Mr. Nichols, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yeah, so you have to. I look at this responsibly. What can we feasibly spend over the next few years while continuing to lower our debt, balance our budget? And one good thing over the last few years is just the fiscal responsibility of the city as a whole. We've increased our bond rating, which means our interest rates decrease, which means we can get more projects done. We're not paying as much in interest as we are for roads. So looking at it, I'm saying that we will be able to spend around $20 million in road improvements over the next 4 years. If you look at the last 12 years, we've spent about $4 million on average on road improvements, which is just under $50 million in road improvements over the last few years. That's all with local tax dollars. And I also look at how can we find other ways to pay for roads. So, for example, we're going to be redoing Custer Street this year. Those are CDBG dollars. We had excess dollars in our CDBG that could be used for roads, so that'll be going exclusively toward Custer Street. Washington Street, good old Washington Street. I recommended using our connecting highway aids, which is about $230,000 a year, to go 100% toward Washington Street. We're going to be looking at about $400,000 for 4 blocks of that. But those connecting highway aids are going toward that state highway on Washington Street. So there's a plethora of different funding sources, but we have to be realistic. Roads are always going to need to be redone, and I would just say that feasibly we can look at $20 million over the next few years for Reed Avenue, Kellner, and other roads that are in desperate need of repair. One
question I want to dovetail off this, gentlemen. I'm going to give you equal opportunity. I want to start with Mayor Nichols on this. How can we improve the line of communication between Madison and local municipalities to address issues such as this? Whenever I go around town, when's Washington Street going to get fixed? When's this going to get fixed? And so on and so forth. How can we improve this, gentlemen, this line of communication so these things get addressed sooner rather than later? Mayor Nichols, please, if you would.
Sure. I don't know if it's necessarily communication. At least with our local representatives, I will say, even though we sometimes sit on different ends of the aisle, Representative Tittle, Senator Lemieux, at least have taken a ride with myself and the state DOT secretary on Washington Street, so they know there's a problem. But you look also, we got $26 million for Waldo Boulevard from the state of Wisconsin. That's $26 million, almost half of what I said we spent over the last 12 years on local roads. That's a huge influx of cash from the state for one stretch of road, which took a while. I think what we need to do as citizens, we need you to step up as well and You need to put myself and the council on notice about roads, absolutely, but we also need to do that with our state legislature. I'm the first vice chair of the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, and roads are obviously an issue everywhere in Wisconsin, in every community, and funding from the state for roads is an issue. It's something that we're taking to the league level. Hopefully, if I'm reelected mayor, I would be the president of that organization next year, and getting the legislature to understand that fixing a pothole isn't a Democrat or Republican issue. It is an issue that every one of our citizens faces every day, and state, you need to find a sustainable funding source for local communities for it.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Mr. Abel?
Yeah, thank you. I think the first most important thing is obviously outreach. We need to be keeping in touch and talking all the time with our representatives and with the officials down in Madison. We need to be working with them all the time and talking with them all the time, not just when we need something, because if you only get in touch with them when you need something, you know how poorly that's going to go for you. I also think we need to have honesty with them and honesty with ourselves. If you get in touch with somebody and they say, well, there's really nothing I am capable of doing about this, then you need to look for someplace else for a solution. I don't really know how either our senator or our assemblyman can change the fact that in 2018, Wisconsin's Department of Transportation came out and took a look at Washington and projected that the city would need to do resurfacing around 2026, and that they wouldn't be planning to do anything on the road until about 2035 to 2041, and that's a projection they gave us. And so that's why I think it's important that we demonstrate also that we're listening and that we understand, and then try to find other solutions by working together.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. And again, another clarification. Highway 151 goes through downtown Manitowoc. Just to clarify, too, to people listening, it's a state highway, okay? And it gets difficult. It really does. And I just bring this up because I think it's important to bring up. And that's why I wanted to ask the question in regards to communication between state and local legislative leaders and municipalities. It is vital. It is important. But again, when you see that 151, when you're going down that road, it's not controlled by the city. It's controlled by the state. And, it is an important issue. And glad to hear that things are looking a little bit better and on the up and up in terms of dealing with this very important issue of city infrastructure. You're listening to our Seehafer News Radio Debates, presented exclusively by Novak Service Center, Manitowoc.
Novak Service Center. Trust us.
At Novak Service Center, we're more than your local mechanic. We're a family-owned business, and we understand the importance of shopping local, supporting those in need, and showing our appreciation. That's why we're offering $10,000 in free oil changes to healthcare workers in our community. In addition, we're also going to offer $5,000 for free oil changes to those in the hospitality industry. So whether you're an essential healthcare worker, or a server, a dishwasher, or even a cook, we want to support you. Simply stop at Novak Service Center and pick up your free oil change certificate. No questions asked. It's our way of saying thank you. Novak Service Center, Manitowoc.
Novak Service Center. Trust us.
And welcome back to our latest of Seehafer News Radio Debates, featuring the two mayoral candidates vying for your vote 2 weeks from today in the spring general election, April the 6th, 2021, to serve you, the citizens of Manitowoc, for the next 4 years. Joining us in studio today, incumbent Mayor Justin Nichols and his challenger, Chris Abel. And why don't we go ahead to this one, and I believe we start with Mr. Abel on this one. Both of you in your opening statements, as I get a look at this question, served on the council and did so for many a time. And, of course, Mayor Nichols did before he was elected mayor and succeeding Kevin Crawford. I guess the question that they want to have is pretty simple. How does your experience serving on the city council parlay you into leading the city of Manitowoc? So, Mr. Abel, if you'd go first, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I served on the council for 10 years. And certainly that experience is helpful for a mayor because you have a better understanding of what the council members are going through. You understand that for them, this is a part-time job. Frankly, it's a part-time advocacy, and they have a lot of other things to be working on, and so you want to help and support them as much as you can. But also, it helps with an understanding of the different branches of local government. The city council are the actual legislators for the city. They make the laws. It is the job of the mayor to administrate those laws. Certainly, the mayor should be helping them with understanding if they make a rule or a law, how it will affect people, how it can be implemented, and certainly how it can be enforced. But it helps to understand better the roles of each group, and I will be completely committed to being the administrator while they are the lawmakers.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. Mr. Nichols, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yes, so I served on council for 4 years, representing District 2, and similar, but a little different. I will say that respect for the separation of powers. I understand the legislative body and the executive, and what those different powers entail. And I understand that the council is set by law to enact the laws of the community, the ordinances that we pass, and any employee policy manual, things like that, and that the mayor enforces those laws. That's what it says in state statute. I also, I learned a lot that, because I worked under a different mayor as well, so I knew what someone else did versus what I'm doing today. And just to respect that for the council and their individual districts, they each represent individual districts, a different constituency. One thing I instituted before COVID, unfortunately COVID didn't allow us to continue it right now, but were individual council listening sessions in each individual district with the mayor and the council member. We sit down with council. We've learned over the years to sit down with council in advance of the budget to talk about any capital projects that any council member may want to bring forward in the next year's budget. Because I was on council and had that understanding of representing one district with 10 individuals, I feel I brought that into the mayor's role where I can respect the separation of those duties. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Nichols. You are listening to our latest series of Seahafer News radio debates. The mayoral candidates for the city of Manitowoc, incumbent Mayor Justin Nichols and challenger Christopher Abel, presented exclusively by Novak Service Center in Manitowoc. One more question here before we take a break. And let's just kind of lap all these into one, because there's concern, one, about Mayoral, two, about the Mid-Cities property, three, dilapidated properties in the city. There are concerns by a lot of folks. So I guess we begin with Mayor Nichols on this one, and I guess I'll just simply sum it up by asking, what is the progress? Where is the progress? And in terms of addressing dilapidated properties in the city, where's the city at? Where would you like to see it go?
Thanks. No doubt. Obviously, we needed to do something with Mayoral. If we did nothing, the building would still be standing there today as a health and safety hazard in that area. But it isn't easy just to say we're going to take something down and put something back up. We have been working pretty aggressively on this site, actually. You may not have seen it because it doesn't look like, there's not a building there to change your mind or think otherwise. But there's been a ton of environmental remediation. Council approved several dollars just recently for more environmental remediation. You may have seen people poking at that site. And we've been working with the Boys and Girls Club. And we actually had a pretty solid deal with them before COVID. Of course, COVID changed a lot of things with, unfortunately, the Boys and Girls Club at that site specific, but that's still the end goal for Mayoral. Mid-City Mall, we created a TIF district quite a few years ago that encompassed the Elks Club property, the Mid-City Mall, and quite frankly, first off, the city doesn't own the Mid-City Mall site. We're working on the Yonkers building with the current owner, but the growth and development that we're seeing in the Bayshore development will just make the Mid-City Mall site much more attractive for anyone to want to build out there, because you're going to see growth, there's going to be more density, and that'll just be a natural flow for continued growth. I will just say our blight program has been very successful in neighborhoods and in buildings that need to be torn down in key areas of the city. There's been a plethora of them. You probably see them. The MC3 building on York Street is the most recent, where we're going to have downtown parking. That's been a very successful program that I will obviously continue if reelected.
Thank you, Mayor Nichols. Mr. Abel, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I think the first thing we need is some clarity and some honesty. The Mayoral property, I really think everybody's operating a little too in the dark right now to make any good or even reasonable decisions about it. For example, how can the Boys and Girls Club know how much money they need to raise when they don't know what it's going to cost to adequately clean up the property? The city has pledged to spend the first $250,000 on that cleanup, but what if cleanup costs are $500,000 or $1 million? That adds a lot to the fundraising they would need to do to be able to use that property. So I think the first thing we need to do is get real, hard facts about that property so that what happens to it afterwards can be decided. On the Mid-Cities Mall, I think that there are some plans from the owner-developer, and the city should be working with them to get those put into place. And on the blight program, I think the blight program is taking care of some properties that we're glad to see cleared up, but we need to make sure that the costs for those cleanups are recovered when the property is transferred to someone else.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. You're listening to our latest in a series of Seehafer News radio debates on 107.9 WOMT and 97.1 WCUB. The two candidates on the ballot for Manitowoc Mayor, incumbent Mayor Justin Nichols and challenger Christopher Abel, are in studio. Presented exclusively by Novak Service Center, Manitowoc.
Novak Service Center. Trust us. Complete comprehensive auto servicing since 1972. We stand behind our work with extended warranties. Novak's experts will take care of you for peace of mind repair. Novak's is there. Novak Service Center. Trust us.
And welcome back to our latest Seehafer News radio debate, 107.9 WOMT, 97.1 WCUB, presented exclusively by Novak Service Center in Manitowoc. The mayoral candidate debate today here on air and online with incumbent Mayor Justin Nichols and his challenger, Christopher Abel. And we will start with Mr. Abel on our final question. We only have time for one. And guys, this one has gotten a lot of, put it this way, a lot of attention. And a lot of people are concerned about this. The good news, we have all these new companies, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, that are coming to town, and there are going to be an opportunity for a lot of jobs. Question is, by a majority of these people, one, where will you get the people to fill the jobs? Two, how will you train these people to perform the jobs that are open to these specific businesses that are coming in to Manitowoc? Mr. Abel, would you go first, please?
Yeah, certainly. I really don't see a problem getting the people to fill the jobs. I think that both here in Manitowoc and throughout Manitowoc County, we have a lot of talented and skilled people that would be great for these jobs. How do we train them? You know, we have a great technical college here. We have a very strong technical program through our high school as well. So I think that training shouldn't be a major issue for us. And I think getting these jobs in is a great opportunity for people to start getting careers that will allow them to support a family, which are really the kind of jobs we want to be attracting. And, you know, as mayor, I will do everything in my power to work to make sure we can provide the training and the opportunities to fill all those jobs.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. Mayor Nichols, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so this is one thing we talk about with businesses, like Ammo, as they just are going to be brand new to the community, basically coming in and adding jobs. a company wouldn't add multi-millions of dollars in a community if they didn't think they could get the jobs. So we work with them in several different ways. Lakeshore Technical College has been spectacular, especially in the manufacturing and healthcare industries, of working with our local businesses. We always talk about state grants that are available to businesses for training purposes. There's a lot of dollars out there for training from the state government, and we've helped a lot of local businesses with training for those employees. And that's just manufacturing. We also have to look that Manitowoc is becoming more diverse in our business climate. Manufacturing is our base. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about that. But we have 2 multi-billion-dollar banks headquartered in our city, with Investors and Bank First, among a bunch of credit unions, local credit unions that are homegrown, hometown here as well. We have 2 major healthcare facilities, as well as others that are in the community. We are starting to see a much more diverse business climate, which is good, because that will attract more families, more people to move to the community, where one may work in healthcare and one may work in manufacturing. This also, it's very important to have a strong public education system, because our public schools also provide a lot to our local manufacturers.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. And man, how time flies. Wow. We've come to the point of our debate where it is time for closing statements. And based on discussion and a coin flip out in the, per se, green room or green area, it was determined that Mr. Abel would give his closing statement first. So, Mr. Abel, you have up to 90 seconds. Go ahead, please.
In the last hour, you've heard just a few places where Justin Nichols and I disagree. Separation of the units of government and recognizing their sovereignty, better budgets by setting public priorities, and road repairs, where, as far as I can tell, we've kicked the can down the road so far, the road is turning into rubble. Now, we all know that if you keep on doing what you've always done, you'll keep on getting what you've always got. This election, you have a real choice for change, a choice you'll make for you, for your families, and for all our futures. I know you're ready for a mayor with a common sense approach to the city's needs. You're ready for a mayor with open office hours and a public schedule. You're ready for a mayor who works with the council and the citizens and other groups to build relationships and develop long-term plans. You're ready for a mayor who knows and thinks about all the hard-working people and families across Manitowoc. So am I. I'm ready, and I'm willing, and of course, I'm able. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abel. Mr. Nichols, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you to CA for broadcasting, Novak Service Center, and Chris. And I hope the citizens can see that while we have many disagreements in how we view the role of mayor, it's been a very cordial and clean campaign. And after what we went through in November, I hope the citizens can appreciate that a mutual respect that we have for each other and the community. We don't want to bring that here. So this is an important election. The growth, the development, the excitement that we've seen today didn't happen overnight, and the work isn't done. We need to keep pushing forward. We need leaders who are willing to look to the future and not just today. And we need to continue investing in every part of our city. I hope that over the past 12 years, I've shown that I am dedicated to doing just that. There's only been 27 men who have served in this office and had the honor and privilege of doing so, and I don't take that lightly. Every day in that office is a gift, and I do it to hopefully benefit you, the citizen. And I will continue to do that if I'm honored to earn your vote. I truly believe that you are my boss. I need to earn your vote and what I plan to do over the next 4 years. I hope you've seen here today the differences in candidates, and that I will earn your vote on April 6th. You can go to justinnichols.com to learn more. Stop down to my headquarters downtown. And just a reminder that early voting started today at City Hall. Any day during the week between now and April 2nd, you can go down to City Hall between 7:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. and vote early in person. Thank you, and I hope to earn your vote on April 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. And I take this time to thank both of you gentlemen. You stick your neck out there to be able to serve the public, and it's a difficult job, sometimes a thankless job. Thanks to both of you for coming on out and sticking your neck out there to be able to endure, and serve our public. Thanks to both of you for coming here today, and best of luck to both of you on April 6th. Thank you again.
Thank you.
You have been listening to the latest of the Seehafer News radio debates presented by Novak Service Center in Manitowoc. And again, a reminder, April 6th, please get out and vote.
Award-winning and family-owned. WOMT Manitowoc and 107.9 FM W300 EE Manitowoc.